Hollywood's golden age is often remembered as a time of glamour, elegance, and unforgettable movies. It was an era filled with legendary actors, dazzling performances, and a strong love for the craft of cinema. People still look back at this time with admiration, thinking of timeless films and actors who shaped the art of acting. Yet, behind the bright lights, red carpets, and smiling faces, there was another side of Hollywood that was far darker and much less talked about. Beneath the glamour, many stars lived complicated and sometimes morally questionable lives. Some were charming in public, but cruel in private. Others used manipulation and fear to get ahead, controlling people around them and hiding the truth behind their carefully crafted images. One of the few actors who dared to talk about these hidden truths was Burt Lancaster. Known for his strong screen presence, magnetic charm, and intelligence, Lancaster experienced Hollywood at its highest and its darkest. Through his observations and experiences, he documented what he saw as the most evil actors of his time, revealing a side of the industry that many fans would never expect. These were not simple stories of scandal or rumor. According to Lancaster, they were examples of behavior that left a lasting impact on colleagues, friends, and even the legacy of Hollywood itself. The actors he described were not evil in the fictional sense, but they caused harm through cruelty, ambition, or selfishness, and their actions shaped the environment of the industry in ways the public rarely understood. By exploring Lancaster's perspective, we can see Hollywood as a place of both incredible artistry and deep moral complexity. The stories he shared challenge the idea that fame, talent, and success automatically equate to kindness or integrity. Instead, we are reminded that even the brightest stars can have dark shadows. In this article, we will explore the life of Burt Lancaster, his career, and his observations of Hollywood's most notorious personalities. From his early years to his rise as a screen legend and finally to his candid reflections on fellow actors, we will examine the truth behind the myths of Golden Age Hollywood. This exploration will provide both entertainment and insight, showing that the world of classic cinema was filled with beauty, talent, and hidden dangers. Burt Lancaster was born Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913, in Manhattan, New York City. He grew up in the East Harlem neighborhood, which was vibrant, crowded, and filled with hard-working families. His father worked as a postal clerk, while his mother stayed at home to care for family. Despite not having a wealthy or privileged upbringing, Lancaster grew up in a household that valued hard work, discipline, and resilience. From a young age, he showed independence, charm, and physical strength, qualities that would later define his career on the big screen. As a teenager, Lancaster attended DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx, where he discovered a passion for sports and physical activities. His natural athleticism earned him recognition and eventually an athletic scholarship to New York University. There, he excelled in basketball and gymnastics, showcasing his extraordinary coordination, stamina, and determination. Lancaster's early physical training became a foundation for his later career in Hollywood, allowing him to perform challenging stunts and create an unforgettable screen presence. Before turning to acting, he became part of the circus world, performing as an acrobat with the Kale Brothers Circus. He traveled across the country, performing daring feats with a longtime friend, and gained discipline, stage presence, and confidence through these experiences. These skills were not just physical. They taught Lancaster about timing, audience engagement, and working closely with others, lessons that proved invaluable in his later acting career. Lancaster's time in the circus also gave him an appreciation for showmanship, risk-taking, and the intense work ethic required to succeed in entertainment. His early life was not free from struggle. Growing up in a working-class family, he had to navigate the challenges of city life, limited resources, and high expectations. However, these experiences shaped his character and gave him a sense of determination that he carried into every role he performed. By the time he entered Hollywood, Lancaster had already learned how to work hard, stay disciplined, and perform under pressure. These qualities would help him rise to the top of the film industry and earn him respect as a talented and versatile actor. Burt Lancaster's entry into Hollywood came after serving in World War II, where he entertained troops in the Special Services Unit. Encouraged to try acting after the war, he made his breakthrough in 1946 with the film The Killers. In this film, he played a doomed character known as the Swede, and his powerful performance instantly marked him as a rising star. His athleticism, charisma, and commanding presence made him a natural leading man. In the late 1940s and 1950s, Lancaster quickly became one of Hollywood's most popular actors, known for his versatility and willingness to tackle complex roles. He acted in film noirs, adventure movies, dramas, and thought-provoking character-driven films. Some of his most famous works include From Here to Eternity, 1953, Sweet Smell of Success, 1957, and Elmer Gantry, 1960, for which he won an Academy Award for Best Actor. He also appeared in Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961, Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962, and later in Atlantic City, 1980, earning another Oscar nomination. In addition to acting, Lancaster co-founded the independent production company Hecht Hill Lancaster, which produced socially significant films, including the Oscar-winning Marty. Through his work, he showed a commitment to realism, social relevance, and stories that mattered. Beyond his screen performances, Lancaster was known for his strong moral compass and activism. He spoke out against racism, censorship, and the House Un-American Activities Committee. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr., opposed the Vietnam War, and consistently used his influence to advocate for justice. Lancaster's reputation for intelligence, professionalism, and ethical integrity made him respected not only as an actor, but also as a person of character. Even as the industry changed and the glamour of Hollywood's golden age faded, Lancaster remained an important figure, documenting what he saw and experienced in the world of movie making. He was deeply aware of the difference between public image and private reality, and he wanted future generations to understand both the brilliance and the darkness of the actors who defined an era. His career spanned decades, and his impact was felt both on screen and behind the scenes. By exploring the lives of other actors through Lancaster's eyes, we gain insight into the complexities, ambitions, and sometimes morally questionable behavior that shaped Hollywood in its golden years. While many fans remember Hollywood's golden age as a time of charm, elegance, and glamour, Burt Lancaster witnessed a very different reality behind the scenes. He observed a side of the industry filled with manipulation, cruelty, and unchecked ambition. According to Lancaster, many actors were not as they appear to the public. While some projected innocence or charm, behind closed doors, they could be controlling, harsh, or even cruel. Lancaster documented these observations in what he called a survivor's list, naming actors he believed had harmful or dangerous behavior patterns. This list was never published during his lifetime, partly because it would have shocked audiences and partly because it could have been misunderstood as bitterness or envy. Nevertheless, Lancaster's accounts provide a rare, insider perspective on the personal lives and behavior of some of Hollywood's biggest stars. He described Mickey Rooney as a man who appeared charming and mischievous in public, but acted cruelly toward younger actors and women. Rooney, in Lancaster's view, enjoyed humiliating others, causing chaos on sets, and manipulating people behind the scenes. Similarly, he described Kirk Douglas as ambitious, manipulative, and willing to betray anyone, including close friends or family, to gain fame or control. Female actors, too, were included in Lancaster's observations. Natalie was portrayed as highly skilled at influencing others and controlling public perception, while Elizabeth Taylor was seen as a dramatic, powerful presence who could disrupt productions and manipulate situations to her advantage. According to Lancaster, fame and talent did not necessarily make these actors kind or ethical. Instead, power, ambition, and insecurity often shaped their actions, sometimes at the expense of colleagues, co-stars, and even family members. Lancaster's writing is both shocking and revealing because it challenges the public's perception of these Hollywood legends. It also highlights the pressures, competition, and personal struggles that define the lives of actors during this era. By examining these behaviors, we can better understand how Hollywood's image of perfection and charm often hid a much more complicated and morally ambiguous reality. In telling these stories, Lancaster did not seek to entertain with gossip. Rather, he aimed to reveal the human complexity behind some of the most famous faces in the world of cinema. One of the first actors Burt Lancaster discussed in his observations of Hollywood's darker side was Mickey Rooney. Rooney was widely known as America's charming boy next door, a playful and lovable entertainer who could make audiences laugh and cry with equal skill. Yet, according to Lancaster, this public image was far from the reality behind the cameras. He described Rooney as someone who could be hot-tempered, cruel, and manipulative. On film sets, Rooney allegedly enjoyed embarrassing extras and fellow actors, creating tension and discomfort among colleagues. He reportedly exerted control over those around him, particularly younger actors who were just beginning their careers, leaving a trail of resentment and confusion. Lancaster's perspective suggests that Rooney's charm and mischief were carefully crafted masks that hid a more dangerous temperament. The actor's many marriages, often portrayed in the media as romantic adventures or unlucky love stories, were, in Lancaster's view, examples of controlling behavior and emotional abandonment. Rooney, according to Lancaster, maintained patterns of behavior that created lasting emotional harm for those close to him. Similarly, Lancaster reflected on Kirk Douglas, who was both a frequent collaborator and a competitor. The two appeared together in several films, including Gunfight at the OK Corral and 7 Days in May, giving the impression of friendship and mutual respect. Behind the scenes, however, Lancaster claimed Douglas was ambitious to the point of ruthlessness. According to Lancaster, Douglas was manipulative, willing to betray even family or close friends for personal gain, and adept at using charm as a weapon to undermine others. He reportedly engaged in shady dealings, attempted to control opportunities for colleagues, and acted in ways that served only his ambition. While the public admired Douglas's talent and professionalism, Lancaster argued that his behavior contributed to a toxic environment for those working with him. Both Rooney and Douglas, as described by Lancaster, highlight a key theme in his observations: the contrast between public perception and private reality. Fame, charisma, and talent did not necessarily equate to moral integrity or kindness. Many actors, despite their brilliance on screen, operated according to personal ambitions and insecurities, shaping their relationships with manipulation, intimidation, or cruelty. Lancaster's reflections serve not only as personal accounts, but also as a warning about the complexity of human behavior, reminding audiences that the stars they adored could be far more complicated and morally ambiguous than they appeared. In sharing these stories, Lancaster illuminated the shadows of Hollywood's golden age, showing that even the brightest lights could hide the darkest truths. Lancaster's observations were not limited to male actors. He also turned his attention to female stars, challenging the public image of actresses like Natalie Wood and Elizabeth Taylor. Natalie Wood, widely known for her delicate and innocent on-screen presence, was described by Lancaster as a highly skilled manipulator. He claimed she could influence the emotions and actions of those around her, using charm and apparent vulnerability to maintain control. According to him, Wood left a trail of emotional confusion, intentionally or unintentionally affecting co-stars, friends, and even directors. She was portrayed not as a naive starlet, but as someone acutely aware of her influence and willing to use it to her advantage. Similarly, Elizabeth Taylor, the legendary Diamond Queen of Hollywood, was described as a force of nature whose fame and beauty allowed her to dominate any situation. Lancaster wrote that Taylor could turn an entire film set into chaos if her wishes were not met, wielding her influence to control co-stars, manipulate directors, and maintain power. While the media often celebrated her glamour, charm, and multiple marriages as exciting aspects of celebrity, Lancaster's perspective portrayed these actions as evidence of her capacity for strategic manipulation. He described her emotional intensity as a tool she used to navigate Hollywood's power dynamics, influencing both professional and personal relationships. Both Wood and Taylor, as seen through Lancaster's eyes, highlight the pressure female actors faced in a male-dominated industry, where they sometimes resorted to strategic manipulation to survive and succeed. At the same time, Lancaster's description suggests that personal ambition and emotional control were not confined to men. Women, too, navigated the industry with a combination of talent, intellect, and tactical behavior. By including these observations, Lancaster painted a picture of Hollywood as a world where appearances could be deceptive and everyone, regardless of gender, had the potential to act in morally ambiguous ways to protect their careers, their image, or their personal interests. These stories emphasize that the Golden Age was not merely a time of glamour and elegance, but also a period filled with complex personalities, hidden struggles, and actions that often contradicted the public's perception of innocence, kindness, or integrity. Lancaster continued his reflections by examining some of Hollywood's most iconic male stars, including Spencer Tracy and James Stewart, as well as the beloved Marilyn Monroe. Spencer Tracy, admired for his intense performances and professionalism, was described by Lancaster as a man haunted by personal struggles, particularly alcoholism. Behind the camera, Lancaster claimed, Tracy's temper could be explosive, creating an environment of fear for co-stars and crew members alike. While audiences and fans excused his behavior due to his immense talent and troubled private life, Lancaster emphasized the consequences of such uncontrolled anger, which could damage relationships and disrupt productions. Similarly, James Stewart, often remembered as a wholesome symbol of American decency, was portrayed as having a darker, more condescending private side. Lancaster suggested that Stewart's patriotic image and carefully maintained reputation of honesty were tools to manipulate how others perceived him, hiding a colder, judgmental personality. Even the most admired stars, Lancaster argued, could display behavior that contradicted the public's image of them. Turning to female talent, Lancaster described Marilyn Monroe as an angel of addiction, whose insecurities and personal struggles created chaos and emotional strain for those around her. Monroe's addictions and vulnerabilities were, in Lancaster's account, both a source of sympathy and a mechanism through which she could influence powerful figures in Hollywood. She reportedly appeared helpless to gain attention, help, or emotional care from colleagues and industry leaders, demonstrating the complicated interplay between personal fragility and strategic influence. Lancaster's portrayal of Monroe is not meant to condemn her entirely, but to reveal the impact of her struggles on the sets and people she worked with. Collectively, these observations illustrate a central theme in Lancaster's reflections: the difference between public personas and private realities. Even actors admired for integrity, warmth, or professionalism were capable of behaviors that cause emotional, professional, or interpersonal harm. Hollywood's golden age, therefore, was not simply a world of stars and glamour. It was also a network of relationships influenced by ambition, insecurity, and the pressures of fame, where appearances often mask complex and sometimes morally questionable realities. Joan Crawford, one of Hollywood's most iconic and enduring stars, was widely celebrated for her glamour, strength, and determination. On screen, she could portray elegance, emotion, and resilience with extraordinary skill. Off-screen, however, Burt Lancaster described her in far different terms. He referred to her as the Iron Matriarch, a woman whose ambition and control extended far beyond her performances. According to Lancaster, Crawford ruled film sets with a combination of sharp looks, strict discipline, and sometimes physical intimidation. She could frighten younger actresses, enforce her vision on directors, and manipulate the public image of herself and those around her. Her personal life, including her relationships with her children, reflected this intense, controlling personality. Lancaster suggested that Crawford's high standards, strict parenting, and relentless drive often resulted in strained family dynamics and emotional tension. Christina Crawford, one of her daughters, later confirmed many of these observations, revealing the impact of living with a parent who demanded perfection and obedience. Joan Crawford's story, as described by Lancaster, highlights the pressures faced by women in Hollywood who were striving not just to succeed, but to maintain control in a male-dominated industry. While some might view her behavior as excessive or harsh, Lancaster emphasized that it was also part of the survival tactics required to thrive in Hollywood. Her ability to command attention, respect, and compliance was both a source of power and a cause of fear, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who worked with her. By including Crawford in his list, Lancaster demonstrated that the struggle for dominance, control, and recognition in Hollywood was not limited to men. Women, too, had to navigate these pressures and sometimes resorted to extreme measures to assert authority and protect their careers. Her life serves as an example of how personal ambition, industry expectations, and a desire for perfection can shape behavior, often in ways that blur the line between strength and cruelty. Through Lancaster's eyes, Crawford's story becomes a lens through which we can understand the intensity, competition, and moral complexity of Hollywood's golden age. It was an era where talent alone was not enough. Control, strategy, and influence were equally crucial, and Crawford mastered all three to an extraordinary degree. Lucille Ball is best remembered as the queen of comedy, a trailblazer whose work on I Love Lucy brought laughter and joy to millions around the world. Her on-screen persona was warm, funny, and charming, making her one of the most beloved figures in television history. Off-screen, however, Burt Lancaster described a different side to Ball's personality. He called her the queen of control, someone who exercised intense authority over her projects, her staff, and the people around her. As head of Desilu Productions, Ball reportedly managed every aspect of the company, micromanaging employees, making secret deals, and overseeing productions with a level of discipline and authority that could intimidate those who work for her. Lancaster suggested that her famous laugh, while endearing to audiences, could become sharp and cutting when things did not go her way. In this way, Ball combined humor with strategic influence, ensuring her vision was implemented while maintaining her status as a powerful leader in a male-dominated industry. Lancaster's observations highlight the duality of public personas and private behavior. While audiences adored her comedic genius, Ball's assertiveness and need for control were critical to her success and survival in Hollywood. Her ability to combine creative talent with managerial skill made her a trailblazer for women in entertainment, but also created tension and fear among colleagues who had to navigate her high expectations. By calling her the queen of control, Lancaster emphasized the skill, discipline, and strategic thinking required to maintain power in Hollywood, particularly for women who were often underestimated or marginalized. Lucille Ball's story illustrates how influence and authority were exercised not just through performance, but through shrewd management and the ability to command respect in all areas of life. Lancaster's observations remind us that behind every public image of charm and humor, there is a complex individual navigating challenges, asserting power, and protecting their career in ways the public rarely sees. Henry Fonda, a pillar of Hollywood acting, was admired for his calm, reserved, and seemingly kind demeanor. He was celebrated as a symbol of dignity, morality, and professionalism. Yet, according to Burt Lancaster, Fonda could also display a profound emotional coldness, treating life and people around him in a manner Lancaster described as judgmental and distant. He suggested that this detachment was not mere shyness, but a deliberate way of maintaining control, asserting authority, and keeping others at a distance. Even his children, including Jane Fonda, reportedly experienced the impact of this emotional distance, shaping their perspectives on relationships and ambition. Jane Fonda, in Lancaster's view, inherited her father's intensity, but combined it with a ruthless streak of her own. While celebrated as a political activist and passionate advocate for social change, she reportedly used her beliefs strategically, shaping narratives, influencing public opinion, and protecting her reputation. Lancaster described Jane as someone who could appear warm and caring in public or among allies, but cold, calculating, and harsh when confronted with opposition. Through the lens of Lancaster's observations, the Fonda family exemplifies a pattern seen throughout Hollywood: the coexistence of public admiration and private calculation. Talent, fame, and activism could coexist with strategic behavior, ambition, and sometimes moral ambiguity. Both Henry and Jane Fonda demonstrate how personal disposition, family dynamics, and the pressures of public life intersect to create complex human behavior. Lancaster's perspective encourages audiences to consider that even actors and public figures celebrated for integrity, warmth, or virtue could operate according to motives and behaviors hidden from the public eye. The Fondas, like many others, highlight the delicate balance between professional success, personal ambition, and moral complexity in Hollywood's golden age. Their stories, seen from Lancaster's vantage point, remind us that fame and talent are only part of the equation, and understanding the full picture requires looking beyond what audiences see on screen. Bing Crosby, a voice that charmed millions and defined a generation of American music and film, was another actor Lancaster placed on his survivors list. While Crosby's public persona projected warmth, ease, and friendliness, Lancaster described him as a man with a colder, more controlling private nature. According to Lancaster, Crosby's smooth charm masked a strict and sometimes harsh approach to parenting, particularly toward his son, Gary Crosby. Gary reportedly experienced emotional pressure and inherited behavioral traits from his father, struggling with bitterness, anger, and difficulties in his own life. Lancaster suggested that Bing Crosby's actions were not necessarily rooted in malice, but reflected patterns of control and high expectations, which left lasting consequences for his family. Gary Crosby, in Lancaster's observation, became a product of this environment, displaying cruelty and struggling with his own emotional challenges as a result of his upbringing. These accounts illustrate how the personal behavior of famous actors could ripple outward, affecting relationships and shaping the lives of those closest to them. Lancaster's descriptions of the Crosbys highlight the human impact of fame, authority, and familial dynamics in Hollywood, showing that the consequences of behavior often extend beyond the sets, studios, or public personas of the stars. The story serves as a reminder that celebrity influence is not confined to audiences and media. It also deeply affects families, colleagues, and the wider network surrounding these figures. In documenting these observations, Lancaster provides a rare perspective on the hidden realities of Hollywood's golden age, demonstrating that even the most beloved stars could exercise power, control, and influence in ways that left lasting impressions on those around them. Marilyn Monroe remains one of the most iconic figures of Hollywood's golden age, admired for her beauty, charm, and unforgettable performances. To the public, she seemed like the perfect combination of glamour and vulnerability, a symbol of innocence and sensuality. However, Burt Lancaster described a very different side of Monroe, one shaped by struggle, insecurity, and emotional need. He referred to her as the angel of addiction, highlighting her dependency on attention, approval, and care from others around her. Monroe's personal insecurities, combined with substance abuse and emotional instability, often caused disruptions on film sets and created tension among directors, co-stars, and crew members. According to Lancaster, Monroe could manipulate situations to gain sympathy or assistance, appearing helpless or fragile to ensure others stepped in to support her. While these behaviors were undoubtedly influenced by deep personal struggles, Lancaster suggested that they had real consequences for those who worked with her, creating delays, stress, and emotional strain. Her talent and charm, though undeniable, coexisted with behaviors that demonstrated the complexities of human vulnerability, ambition, and coping mechanisms in a highly competitive industry. Monroe's life illustrates the tension between public adoration and private difficulty, showing that fame and success do not eliminate personal struggles, but can sometimes magnify them. In Lancaster's account, Monroe's story is not simply one of tragedy, but also a reflection of the pressures faced by women in Hollywood who were simultaneously idolized and scrutinized. It is a reminder that behind the bright lights and beautiful appearances, there are human beings grappling with emotions, fears, and coping strategies that often remain hidden from public view. Monroe, like many other stars described by Lancaster, embodies the duality of Hollywood's golden age, a world of brilliance shadowed by personal struggle, ambition, and the complex interplay between public image and private reality. Through this lens, we gain a fuller understanding of the cost of fame, the weight of expectations, and the human vulnerabilities that shape the era's most celebrated icons. Errol Flynn, famous for his swashbuckling roles and charismatic screen presence, was often portrayed as the ultimate charming rogue. Adventure, romance, and daring exploits defined his on-screen persona, earning him the admiration of fans around the world. Burt Lancaster, however, depicted Flynn quite differently in his writings. He described him as a devil-may-care desperado, charming yet cruel, whose wild parties and reckless behavior often crossed into genuine harm for those around him. Flynn's actions were not merely playful or lighthearted. According to Lancaster, they masked a disregard for feelings and safety of others. Reports of violence, manipulation, and exploitation suggested that Flynn's charisma often served to deflect accountability for his harmful behaviors. People who worked with him, including colleagues, friends, and victims, were sometimes kept silent through fear or money, further allowing Flynn to continue his disruptive actions without consequence. Lancaster emphasized that Flynn's charm was a weapon as much as a shield, enabling him to navigate social situations while avoiding scrutiny or repercussions. While audiences may have seen only adventure and excitement, Lancaster's perspective reveals the complexities and contradictions of Flynn's character, a man who could entertain and inspire millions while simultaneously causing personal harm behind the scenes. Flynn's life and behavior underscore a recurring theme in Lancaster's observations: the contrast between public adoration and private moral ambiguity. Stars who captivated audiences were often operating under a mix of ambition, personal need, and sometimes outright disregard for others, revealing the hidden costs of fame and the darker realities of Hollywood's golden age. In examining Flynn, Lancaster challenges the public's idealized view of celebrity, reminding readers that behind daring smiles, heroic performances, and charm, there could be actions with lasting and damaging effects on those closest to the stars. Through Lancaster's observations of actors, such as Mickey Rooney, Kirk Douglas, Joan Crawford, Lucille Ball, Marilyn Monroe, and Errol Flynn, a pattern emerges. The golden age of Hollywood was as much about power, manipulation, and hidden cruelty as it was about talent, glamour, and artistry. Lancaster's perspective encourages a more nuanced understanding of fame, showing that public image is often carefully constructed to conceal ambition, insecurity, or morally ambiguous behavior. The stories he told are not merely sensational gossip. They are reflections of complex human behavior shaped by extraordinary pressure, social expectation, and the competitive nature of the entertainment industry. Actors, whether male or female, young or old, often had to navigate an environment where success required not only talent but strategy, influence, and sometimes intimidation. Lancaster's survivors list illuminates the cost of ambition and the human consequences of living under constant scrutiny, revealing the ways in which personal flaws, insecurities, or power struggles could ripple outward, affecting colleagues, families, and even entire productions. By documenting these experiences, Lancaster provided a candid insider account of Hollywood, challenging audiences to recognize the difference between performance and reality. His writings remind us that admiration for talent should not blind us to human complexity, and that even celebrated figures are capable of behaviors that range from morally questionable to genuinely harmful. In analyzing these behaviors collectively, we see that fame does not inherently create virtue, nor does talent guarantee decency. Instead, it amplifies personality traits, both positive and negative, while exposing individuals to pressures that can distort actions and relationships. Hollywood's golden age, as portrayed by Lancaster, was therefore a world of duality, brilliance and darkness, success and struggle, adoration and fear. Understanding this duality provides a more honest and meaningful appreciation of the actors, their work, and the environment in which they lived and thrived. While Lancaster scrutinized the behavior of others, he was also candid about his own life, though less publicly. He was married 3 times, and his personal relationships reflected the complexities of a life lived under public scrutiny and professional demand. His first marriage to June Ernst in 1935 occurred during his early career as a circus performer, combining shared physical performance skills with the excitement of live entertainment. However, as his career progressed, the demands of Hollywood led to their separation in 1946. Lancaster's second marriage, to Norma Anderson, became the most significant period of his personal life. Together, they had 5 children, and despite the pressures of fame, Lancaster remained devoted to his family. Over time, however, the demands of acting, long period away for filming, and personal affairs created challenges that ultimately led to divorce in 1969. His final marriage, to Susan Martin in the 1990s, provided companionship and support during his declining health. Lancaster's personal experiences of love, responsibility, and hardship undoubtedly informed his observations of others, giving him insight into pressures, temptations, and moral complexities faced by those in Hollywood. His life demonstrates that even a celebrated actor with power and influence contends with human vulnerability, relationship difficulties, and the need for personal reflection. Lancaster's candid perspective, both on others and on himself, allows us to see him not only as a legendary actor, but also as a thoughtful observer of human behavior, someone aware of the contradictions and challenges that define both personal and professional life. Burt Lancaster's reflections on Hollywood's golden age offer a rare window into human complexity behind the glamour. By documenting the behaviors, ambitions, and personal flaws of his peers, Lancaster challenges audiences to reconsider the idealized narratives of fame, beauty, and talent. The actors he described, whether Mickey Rooney, Kirk Douglas, Joan Crawford, Lucille Ball, Marilyn Monroe, or Errol Flynn, serve as reminders that public personas are carefully constructed and often conceal ambition, insecurity, or morally ambiguous actions. Lancaster's own life, marked by talent, hard work, personal struggle, and moral conviction, adds depth to his observations, showing that insight often comes from experience, reflection, and courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Ultimately, Lancaster's survivors list is more than a catalog of Hollywood scandals. It is a study of human behavior, power, and the consequences of ambition in an extraordinary environment. His legacy as an actor and an observer reminds us that greatness on screen does not equate perfection off-screen, and that understanding the full picture requires looking beyond charm, glamour, and fame. Through his candid accounts, audiences gain not only entertainment, but also valuable insight into the complexity of human character, the cost of success, and the enduring impact of choices made in pursuit of power and influence. Hollywood's golden age may be remembered for its timeless films, iconic performances, and cultural impact, but Lancaster's writings reveal that it was also shaped by ambition, manipulation, and moral complexity, making his perspective invaluable for anyone seeking to understand the reality behind the myth. Hollywood's golden age, often remembered for its glamour, glittering red carpets, and unforgettable performances, left a legacy that went far beyond the screen. While audiences celebrated the charisma, talent, and on-screen heroics of stars like Burt Lancaster, Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Errol Flynn, Lancaster's reflections reveal that the era's true complexity lay in the interplay between fame, ambition, and human behavior behind closed doors. Every actor, whether male or female, faced the immense pressures of maintaining public personas while navigating personal insecurities, rivalries, and the relentless competition of the entertainment industry. Lancaster's accounts, spanning decades of first-hand observation, suggest that fame amplified not only talent and charm, but also flaws, ambition, and moral ambiguity. Actors who seemed charming, heroic, or innocent in public often displayed controlling, manipulative, or even cruel behavior in private, demonstrating the duality of public and private life in Hollywood. This duality is especially evident in stars like Marilyn Monroe, whose struggles with addiction, emotional vulnerability, and personal insecurities affected everyone around her, creating chaos on film sets while simultaneously captivating audiences with her talent and charm. Similarly, Joan Crawford's iron discipline and controlling nature ensured her success, but left lasting emotional scars on colleagues and children, highlighting the personal cost of maintaining power and authority in a competitive industry. Male actors, too, face pressures that shape behavior. Kirk Douglas's ambitious drive, Spencer Tracy's struggles with anger and alcohol, and James Stewart's calculated public persona reveal that fame alone does not define morality or character. Lancaster's reflections also underscore the intergenerational impact of Hollywood life, as seen with Bing Crosby and his son Gary, or Henry Fonda and Jane Fonda, where personal behavior and family dynamics influence the next generation's experiences and choices. Beyond individual stories, Lancaster's observations suggest a broader pattern. Hollywood's golden age was a crucible that tested resilience, morality, and ambition, producing extraordinary talent, while also fostering behaviors shaped by stress, competition, and desire for control. The era's legacy is therefore not simply the classic films or iconic performances it produced, but also the complex human stories hidden behind the glamour. Lancaster's writings encourage modern audiences to recognize the nuances of fame, understand the human cost of ambition, and appreciate that every star, no matter how adored, faced personal battles that shaped their decisions, behavior, and relationships. Ultimately, the Golden Age stands as a testament to both the brilliance and the human complexity of those who made it legendary, reminding us that behind the lights, cameras, and applause lies a world of ambition, struggle, and moral ambiguity that continues to fascinate and inform our understanding of Hollywood today. Burt Lancaster's account of Hollywood's Golden Age are not just sensational stories or scandalous gossip. They serve as important lessons about fame, power, and human morality. His observations reveal that the bright lights and glamorous appearances of Hollywood often mask complicated personalities, hidden ambitions, and morally ambiguous actions. Actors, regardless of talent or charm, were subject to pressures that tested their ethics, patience, and relationships. Lancaster's reflections show that the cost of fame extended far beyond the personal struggles of individual stars. It affected families, co-workers, and even entire productions. For example, the behavior of actors like Marilyn Monroe, Joan Crawford, or Errol Flynn disrupted film sets and created tension among colleagues, demonstrating how individual insecurities or flaws could ripple outward and impact the lives of others. Similarly, male stars like Kirk Douglas, Spencer Tracy, and James Stewart, while celebrated publicly, often used charm, ambition, or control to manipulate situations in ways that could harm or intimidate those around them. Lancaster's survivors list highlights a recurring pattern. Public admiration does not always reflect private behavior, and talent does not automatically equate to moral integrity. Beyond exposing personal flaws, Lancaster's observations emphasize the consequences of unchecked ambition and the responsibility that comes with influence. Fame, he suggests, can amplify both positive and negative traits, rewarding those who excel in public performance while punishing those unable to manage personal ambition, ego, or emotional challenges. His reflections also underscore the importance of empathy and understanding, as many of the behaviors he observed, whether manipulative, cruel, or disruptive, were influenced by human vulnerability, past experiences, or trauma. The experiences of Bing Crosby and Gary Crosby, Henry and Jane Fonda, or Marilyn Monroe illustrate how personal and familial dynamics intersected with public life, leaving lasting impacts on both generations and colleagues. Lancaster's perspective encourages audiences to look beyond the glamour and question the narratives presented by Hollywood's media, reminding us that stars are human, capable of brilliance and error alike. His writings challenge the myth that Hollywood is a world of pure fantasy and perfection, revealing instead a reality shaped by ambition, rivalry, personal struggle, and human complexity. At the same time, Lancaster's insights are a testament to his own character, combining honesty, moral reflection, and courage. He was able to observe, understand, and document the hidden truths of his peers without glorifying them, providing a rare window into an era that continues to shape how we view fame, artistry, and personal integrity. Through these lessons, Lancaster's reflections remain highly relevant today, showing that while fame can create legends, it can also expose the contradictions, vulnerabilities, and moral challenges that define the human experience, making Hollywood's golden age not only a period of cinematic brilliance, but also a profound study of human behavior and ambition.